Scott, and Real America is on there. Logged in.
Who is?
Real America.
There were two people from Real America who are the petitioners for tonight.
Oh, okay. So we went from 3 to 1.
Mhm.
Correct.
Good job, Johnny. I have a password I have to put in here. Yours. I already did for me. It's talking, I'm on the site, board pack. Session timed out, put in password, continue. Does he need to put a different password in?
It should be whichever one he's been using, so I don't get
No, he said he put his personal one in, and he's still being asked for a It password. says session timed out.
Yeah, just try it again and then refresh.
Hit continue, nothing's happening.
Justin's a computer guru.
He kinda is.
Well, compared to the two guys up here, I'm gonna throw you under the same bus.
Yeah, you could.
You wanna take a look at it, give me your professional opinion? The board pack is up there on top, if you're looking for that.
Phase 4. Mine's thin.
So Dan, you don't care if you live or die, is that what you're telling us?
I don't care if what.
You live or die?
I'm ready to go
Yeah.
whenever.
I have extra printed copies if we're,
Oh, yeah, he
having
was
more
prepared and brought extras, so if you would like some, just to look at paper.
Look at what?
The
Oh,
paper stuff,
I want to be high tech, it makes me look better.
you know.
I wouldn't go worked- there. It worked before.
Yeah,
I wouldn't go
and
there.
it's not blue.
Nobody else is using the computer. Well, I go through what you go through a lot, and then I've got to try to flip back and forth for me, which is. Well, home was working fine, that's why.
Yeah,
I signed
no,
up. I guess I'll take paper. Well, actually, I kind of know it, I just, I'm not sure anything about it. I've got the signature sheet.
Hey, guys, update on that, you know that sign that they were gonna replace over in the medical plaza with all the new,
Thank you.
I see
the K-21, I think it was,
Yeah.
that building, they put that sign up today, it looks
Wow.
beautiful.
Oh, does it?
Yes,
Good.
it's nice.
Thank you. And there was silence. I'm sorry? Then there was silence. Well, we were just waiting for you to keep coming in. I thought you'd be speaking tonight at that convention. I've already spoke, didn't you see me? I'm offended. Without any further ado. Filing a complaint. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's Warsaw Board of Zoning Appeals. I think everybody's mic is on and hopefully you can all hear. If you can't, feel free to throw an object at him. With that, we will go to the approval of the minutes. Mr. President, I've read the minutes. If there are no further questions or comments, I move to approve. So moved, seconded.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Dalton. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we need to do, Scott, no, modified roll call? Okay, very good. With that, we will go to unfinished business. Johnny, do we have any?
No.
Thank you, sir. New business, the only one left on the agenda is 2020-0801, 2525 East Durban Street. Real America is the petitioner, allowing for a multifamily resident and an I-2. Johnny, can you read us the facts, please?
The petitioner has requested a use variance to construct a multifamily house within an I-2 zoning district. The proposed project features 2 3-story buildings with 60 units, as well as a community building, parking, and other amenities for tenants. See attachment 3 for the site plan provided by the petitioner. The location is currently occupied by the former Arnold building, as well as several smaller vacant lots. The I-2 designation does not allow for residential development. The properties north, west, and east are C2, R3, and C2, respectively. All 3 of these districts allow for multifamily housing. The comprehensive plan identifies the corridor as a target for community vitality. The lot is identified as industrial due to the historic presence of Arnold. An Argonne Corridor Vision Plan is currently in the works by the Kosciuszko Economic Development Corporation in partnership with Warsaw and Winona Lake. The Vision Plan identifies Arnold property as a potential catalyst site for private investment in the corridor. The general corridor vision is to encourage a mixed-use neighborhood. A residential market potential study conducted in 2020 identified a demand for rental housing in Warsaw. I'd like to make a note that in the document some of you have, it says we've received 1 letter. We have since received 1 letter against and 2 in support of the petitioner. It is the recommendation of the planning department that the board approve this request. The Arnold building is an important catalyst site for the revitalization of Argonne Corridor. Shifts in manufacturing, city growth, and transportation trends have made the site less suitable for the heavy industry historically conducted in the area. The proximity to restaurants and a grocery store make it an ideal candidate for expansion of rental housing. The city of Warsaw has worked to encourage private investment in the site for several years.
Thank you, Johnny. Is everyone on the board familiar with what he's talking about as the catalyst and what they're trying to do there?
Well, I'm not sure if that has a technical meaning. I'd like to hear it.
Anyone want to expound on that? Because I would like to personally know more about it before we dive into this.
Yeah, so obviously, we've been working on this for a couple of months now. The Redevelopment Commission approved a portion of their study that they're paying for. Winona Lake has also paid for this study that's being done to look at redevelopment opportunities in this area. Obviously, with the Gacke property, the Redevelopment Commission's been trying for years to create some redevelopment options. With the Arnold property, the city recently entered into ownership of it, probably about a month ago, with the intent of working with Real America to redevelop that property into a housing opportunity. And you might ask, why this location? Obviously, accessibility is huge when we're talking about rental housing. The accessibility to commercial, the accessibility to grocery stores, accessibility to educational opportunities, all of which this site affords us as we continue to work on a redevelopment plan within that area. There are other industries in that area that we're also working with that will probably change the face of the Argonne Corridor over the next 10 years. It's not going to happen overnight, but obviously this would be kind of that first step in that direction. There's still a lot of industry in this area, and we want to protect that industry. That's why we are not recommending a rezoning in this case. We're recommending a use variance because that's
Say
still...
that again, I'm sorry, I wanted to hear that, and I didn't catch that sentence.
This is not a rezoning request.
Right.
This is a use variance, which still protects the existing businesses in that area. So we're not damaging
Nothing will
or
be shut down.
not permitting them to continue to operate the same way that they are now, so it won't have an impact on their operations. This site, given the location of surrounding uses, given the location of the Argonne Corridor and the Parker Street and the Market Street and the bike accessibility and the village of Winona Lake, all of this kind of coming together creates this opportunity. What I was talking about earlier with accessibility, you get a lot of points for housing when you have that accessibility. And that accessibility goes to job opportunities as well. So it's not necessarily a negative to have the availability of job opportunities within this area. So the mixed use corridor plan We'll have a variety of different commercial, professional, some light industrial uses as a part of its whole as we redevelop some of these underutilized buildings or demolish some of those that are no longer usable, and especially when we're talking about industrial sites that have some cleanup that'll have to be done. We've been working with MACOG as part of the EPA grant that they achieved about a year ago. This site has gone through a phase 1 investigation, and we're working, like I said, with Real America to put all the puzzle pieces together to submit an application for that September 18th deadline for affordable housing.
I have two questions. One is, I want to make sure I understand what kind of housing is going in there. Is this like another retired Tigers type, a senior citizens type, or is it open-ended?
It is open-ended, so it'll be like Little Crow Lofts.
It'll be what?
It'll be like Little Crow Lofts. It is
Okay.
not specific to seniors, no.
So they can have children or whatnot?
Yes.
Okay. And secondly, when did the Arnold building first become empty? Do you know that? I mean, I moved here in '76, and I'm trying to remember if it was empty then or not.
It's been defunct probably since the mid-'80s.
Okay, so it was still going along.
If it was, it wasn't probably at the height of its use. But I believe in the '90s it entered into receivership. So it's been in receivership for a very long time, like 30-some
And the
years.
city has purchased that property,
We have obtained ownership of the property, yes,
okay?
with the intent of working with a
You're gonna
developer to
demolish what's
redevelop it.
left.
The building's coming down.
Was that Mike Arnold that owned that?
The Arnold Corporation owned it
Okay.
at some point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mike may have owned it, but he has relinquished any ownership to it years ago when it went into receivership.
Yeah, okay.
It was taken
Have you
over by
had
the
any-
bank. The bank issued a receiver at the time, which was Jim Walmer. Walmer attempted to maintain and/or find a use for the building for a number of years. It was randomly used here and there, but more or less treated like a dump. After taking it to code hearing a number of times, that receivership was granted through the courts, was getting rid of, and the property was given to us like a month ago. And Scott could answer any of the legal questions as far as the ownership of the property, but and how we obtained it, but that's where we're at now, is that the city owns the property.
And there are 3 properties in that area, right? There's this Arnold, there's the one across the street that used to be the milk or the cheese and
Milnut?
Milnot, and then there's the one behind that. Those are the 3 that are still there, that are kind of just been hanging there forever.
So the Arnold property that we have obtained ownership, you're right, and then there's the 2 buildings south of that, which are in, the one of them is owned by Dean Avey, and there's a number of offices that he's remodeling and putting into that facility. There is conversations of trying to get a restaurant to go in there as well.
But this property, nobody's gone after this since the 80s, quite literally. This is a
No.
20-year-old situation that's,
Yeah, the building itself, to try to rehab it and reuse it would be very difficult to do. It's a lot of square footage. And just trying to heat and cool that square footage would be very difficult to reuse it.
at least from appearances, this sounds like a pretty good idea. Is there any, I know we've got 1 letter against, 2 in favor. Do you have an example that comes to mind in that you could base it on that said, okay, we kind of did a use variance in South Bend or Elkhart or someplace that you're familiar with? If anything come to mind that this initiative was taken and the results were positive and or negative?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of redevelopment projects that have happened
And this
across
is why
many
we're doing
states.
it.
I think the important thing for me, and I've talked to Mr. Weaver, and I know he has his concerns, and certainly we want to protect his business currently and his ability to grow his business. I think the use variance affords that opportunity because we're not relinquishing any of his rights to continue to operate in that fashion. And I think in the broad picture, the redevelopment of that corridor will enhance his property and the ability to future develop his property rather than being surrounded by vacant and dilapidated and falling down buildings. this is a significant project, and it's gonna have significant investment from the city to make this happen. This, not only are we owning the property, but we're probably gonna be demoing it, which is gonna be hundreds of thousands of dollars, to make it ready for this development. And this development is, I don't know if they have exact numbers yet, but it's a significant development, much like the senior housing project we did. We acquired property, we did some road improvements, we improved infrastructure on the Market Street, the senior housing development. We did some demo work on that property as well. All of that investment, the city and the redevelopment commission invested $300,000 in that project. Those investments are creating those opportunities, and that was the same thing in that scenario. You have a gas station across the street. You had an abandoned gas station that sat empty for years, and it had environmental issues that had to be remediated in order to make all of this happen. And this Arnold property is going to be the same way. This is going to be an opportunity to take a site that is dilapidated, fallen down, has environmental issues, retool it, bring it back into the system as a major piece of this corridor rebuild.
And when we look at the streets surrounding the area, are those street improvements also part of this plan, I would assume?
There are some street improvements that will happen on Durbin as well. A lot of it will be triggered by what this ultimate development looks like and making that connection. There's some walkability things we want to do that we were talking to Mr. Avey about and his building and the projects he has that are working in that area as possible, like I said, a possible restaurant, and connecting that into Winona Lake and connecting it to our bike path.
In regard to what Tom just asked, is it fair to say that if there's gonna be kids possibly there's gonna be sidewalks up and down that road? So that, you know, kids and whoever else can walk up and down?
Oh, yeah,
have a
yeah,
walk
that
on the
was
street?
part of the discussion we're having on what that road looks like.
Durbin?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What are your plans?
Proposed playground here too.
okay, very good.
What are your plans for getting over the railroad tracks, or under, or what?
Well, that's a little bit more difficult, a lot more parties involved. We did recently have a meeting with some railroad consulting firms with Winona Lake on trying to clean up that image. So we're working on that as well, but that's gonna be a lot harder to do because of the parties that are at play.
Well, safety has got to come into play with what you're talking about doing there.
Yeah, I think we're most likely running down to McKinley Street and then coming back through
Okay.
because of the accessibility at McKinley Street from a connectivity standpoint.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you, Jeremy. We may call upon you later. All right, with that, we can move on into the next phase, which is there anyone here to speak in favor of the petition, or I assume that's on the phone, correct? Jim, okay, hold on. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes. This guy right out there in the audience is talking.
Okay, I thought somebody on the TV was, okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, I forgot to unmute my phone. Hi, this is Jeff Ryan, Vice President of Development for Real America Development.
Okay, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, Jeremy covered it pretty well. We're very interested in continuing to work in Warsaw. As you may remember, we came before you a few months ago with another site farther north, but you wanted to keep that as the industrial park and said, suggested we continue looking. So we did continue looking and came upon this site, which we think is a great location, being near downtown, as you said, near grocery store, pharmacy, the other things for our residents. Having the bar basically next door with the outdoor volleyball courts is really cool. Access to Winona Lake. If I am able to present, I can show you a site plan and a few photos of what we're looking at for this site. Am I able to do that?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Momentarily.
Somewhere I can see the screen.
I think Johnny's getting that set up for you, Joe.
Okay.
No, we're not going to lose audio on him, correct?
No. Justin, do you know how to get the it so that anyone can present.
I love it when the kids don't snap up the
Oh,
computer
there we
and
go.
get it done.
There it is.
Okay, so like I said, we're calling this 2525 for its address. I'll just breeze through Real America since we talked to you a couple months ago. We've been around since '95. We have about 100 apartments in Warsaw, and we have never sold an apartment deal in the 25 years that we have been doing those. That we hold them for the long term. We want to be a partner with Warsaw for decades to come. The 2525 specifically, obviously one of the big things we're doing, as you're discussing, is cleaning up the site, working with the city to tear down the building, but then also there is some environmental issues that we will take care of to make sure that it is perfectly safe for our future residents. A mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments on it's about 3 acres because it's not just the Arnold site, it's also the Delta investment site that makes it a squared off site. So I assume you know where it is here on the east side of downtown. Zooming in a bit more on it, you see the old building that's there and some vacant sites. And it's a lovely looking building right now. Definitely needs to come down. So site plan here where we have the 2 buildings. This is showing it with the existing building underneath it. It's a little bit easier here so you can see, you know, with the parking and the 2 apartment buildings, playground, dog park. We're looking at a sports court also that isn't on here right now. It's shown a community building so we can have on-site property management, maintenance, and plus amenities for the residents. This is the style of building that we're looking at. We just completed our first one of this new style in Columbus, and at least we really like it. You know, it's a much more updated design from our Heron Preserve apartment. And then this is the clubhouse that goes with those apartments. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, go back to any slides, since I know I went through it rather quickly. I wanted to respect your time, but I will answer questions as long as you'd like.
Thank you for being brief. Well done, Jeff. Appreciate it. Any questions?
When you said Heron Apartments, are you talking about the ones on the north side of Center Lake there, on the northwest side? Is that?
Yeah, like behind Kohl's.
Coles.
Oh, behind Coles?
Behind Coles.
Okay, okay.
north
Other side of
15th.
town.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Now,
Yeah, Heron Preserve and Heron Corporate, we have 3 phases of apartments that we've done over the last 15, 20 years there.
okay, thank you.
Is the site contaminated?
Is that specific site contaminated? I don't know. Is that, Jeremy, it is? We're talking about ground
Yeah.
and
Chemical.
subground?
There are some environmental issues that will have to be dealt with as a part of redeveloping this property, yes.
Is that part of our demolition speaking as the city?
Possibly, but most likely it'll be working with the developer to figure out all those pieces.
Has that been thoroughly investigated by chance where they've done core samples?
We have done a phase 1. We know what issues there are. It's just a matter of what we need to do to make this development possible.
Okay. Thank you.
No,
Anyone else?
And I have talked to the environmental company about the cleanup on it, and it is something that we definitely can do. It's very similar to a cleanup we did on another property.
So you've had experience with this?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on the positive side of this to speak in favor of the petition? I'm sorry I interrupted you, sir, apparently. Do you want to say, are you speaking in favor of?
Yes, I would.
Okay, come on up, sir, and introduce yourself for the press.
Evening. I'm Jim Weaver. I own Warsaw Engineering and Fabricating, and J&D, which owns the property, real estate.
Okay,
We've been there 35 years, over which period it's been zoned industrial, which is what I had intended. That was part of the plan. It's not so much the zoning, it's land use. And I just don't understand why, if it's zoned industrial, the existing industrial is gonna have to endure a neighborhood that's full of, well, low-income people, children, running the streets. Now, their shortcut to Winona Lake is to cut our property through it, climb the bank, walk over the tracks, and then cross over somebody else's property, which is trespass. And we've allowed it because, quite frankly, it's usually little kids. And we have forklift traffic. We fabricate very heavy equipment for the foundries, for the steel mills. You can't handle that with a little forklift. We have cranes, which is a concern too. Little kids like to get on equipment. But to address the Arnold property per se, when we moved there in '85, Arnold was, I think they were in business at the time, but they were going downhill. And a guy named Dennis Tiberius bought that property, or didn't buy the property, he bought the business apparently. And I would guess that the Arnold family leased it to him. And he tried, I don't know, 7, 8 years to make that thing go, but it didn't go. In fact, we rented that property for 2, 3 years and built industrial makeup air heaters, direct fired gas heaters. So the use is definitely historically industrial. And I had all the confidence that that would stay that way.
Maybe I misunderstood. You're speaking in favor of the petition, or you were against it?
Oh, I'm against it.
Yes, thank you.
I'm sorry.
I hadn't called quite for that side of the fence yet.
I'm sorry.
That's
I
quite all right.
misunderstood you.
Yeah, that's fine, that's fine. So you're in opposition, and now that you're here, we could probably take that side of it and say, Jeremy and whoever, his concern about safety is always an issue. What's the city planning to do that, and how?
I think the big thing with safety is creating opportunities for them to safely navigate where they need to go without trespassing. Right now, those opportunities aren't there. It's incumbent upon us to work with the developer to create those opportunities.
And given the lack of residential directly in that area, I'm kind of surprised that there's that many children trespassing over the property. That's
Trailer court.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of residential in the area. I mean,
Yeah.
this obviously is a very, very older portion of, or I would say, let's just say, the original industrial part of Warsaw by it obviously is. The Daltons and Jackie and Arnold. Obviously, when we look at it now, that has changed a lot. But we also want to protect our businesses that are there. And that's why conversations I've had, emails I've had with Mr. Weaver, it's very important to us to protect his ability to continue to operate. And I think going through this process in the way that we have will still allow him to continue to do what he needs to do. The fabric of that area is changing, and it's changing because the transportation opportunities that were there 50, 60 years ago are no longer there. It's changing because the industry that was there has left, and they're not coming back. It's changing because the uses surrounding it have drastically changed. If you look at Argonne and Center Street, 15 years ago, there was no Walgreens, or there was no, so a lot of that fabric is changing, and we need to continue to work towards rehabilitating this area by looking at the uses that are more conducive to fit that rehabilitation. It is not, that facility is not going to be manufacturing anymore. If it was going to be manufacturing, it would have done that 30 years ago. We can stare at that building for the next 30 years and hope that manufacturing comes back, but it will not. The Gapke property has been in the city's ownership since 1999.
no industry in the gap. There has been no industry that came and knocked down our door and said, we want to rehabilitate this and turn it back into the industry it was. That is not going to happen. So we're trying to rehabilitate this area while at the same time protect the industry that are there. They're very important to the city of Warsaw that they can continue to survive, continue to grow if need be. But we can't keep looking at these properties and assuming that someone's going to come and open up a Milnok factory again. It's not going to happen.
Is there enough land in the area, should Mr. Weaver decide to expand, to make that expansion?
He owns a lot of property that is still industrial and that will remain industrial. We're not changing the zoning district. We are simply trying to rehabilitate that fabric because we know there will be mixed uses. We know he's going to continue to operate there and we don't want to inhibit his ability to operate. As it stands right now, Warsaw Chemical is still operating there. That may change, but for now, they're still operating there. And so we have to mix these uses together in a fashion that will work for everyone. Because we know we're not going to get another Warsaw Chemical there. We know we're not going to get another Allman Arnold there. We know we're not going to get another Gap there. They're not going to locate there.
Good. Thank you, Jeremy.
Mr. Weaver, just as an outsider looking in, it just seems to me that the problem you're concerned about are people traveling across your property. I haven't looked at your property. Is there a fence or not a fence around the perimeter of your property?
No, a portion of it, the old parking lot for Arnold has a fence, which we store items.
It seems realistically to me, and I'm not suggesting, I'm just talking out loud, but between the trailer parks and this thing, I don't see what the city's gonna do that's gonna stop that. It almost seems like you have to put a fence up if you're really serious about stopping that.
That seems like I've heard that before.
Yeah, I'm just talking out loud, but I don't see how anybody can stop that from happening. It's almost like you've got to, maybe the city can help in some way with that, but.
I was gonna say, my 2 cents on it is that if the city does this, then they ought to bear some of the expense of a fence around Mr. Weaver's property to keep the kids out, because they're gonna be encroaching there. There's already homeless people in that Arnold building.
Well, the other thing I'd point out is, as a retired attorney, there's a lot of liability. Knowing those kids are walking across there and then not doing something about it, that's not good.
It's not my fault they're walking across
But
there.
that makes a difference. Scott could probably.
I also have a property on the north side, which is right across the road from the Arnold building.
It's kind of a known danger. If you don't do something about it, it can be a problem.
Yeah.
But,
I think we're leaving the jurisdiction of the zoning board.
yeah, I'm just trying to find a solution for that.
So I understand that. We probably had to get back to the petition on that. Anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Weaver?
I'm all for cleaning up the Arnold property. I have been for a long time. I hated to see it go to waste like it did.
Yeah.
Like I say, we utilized it for a number of years.
Mhm.
But I don't want to see it at the risk of operating or trying to operate within a neighborhood, right across the street from a neighborhood. I've got a daughter and son that are continuing the business. And their plan is to continue it, well, as long as they can, which it could be another 35 years. But what I'm hearing is don't do it there.
You're hearing that from who? The city or from your family?
Mr. Skinner.
Okay.
In other
Again,
words,
I
it's
don't
gonna be
think that's
mixed.
exactly what was said. I think his plan is if this gets it to the next phase, and there's many ways that can be challenged, but I think what he's saying is their goal is to not interfere with the business that's there, which
Well,
is yours.
What I heard was long-term, no businesses are coming in there.
I heard that we've been trying to do that for 30 years. As long as I've lived in the city, it's not gone anywhere. I mean, there's been no industrial activity to say that I'm coming into town, I'm gonna build there.
For those locations.
Yes.
They want to go out to the parks where all.
Well, we've got enough industrial
Yeah,
area.
find a greenfield site to go build
It's an
instead of a brownfield.
It's an accessibility. I mean, you're talking about an industry that transports via truck. And from an accessibility standpoint, this is not the location they're gonna be at. They're gonna be at somewhere that they can get access to US 30, which is why we have the Airport Industrial Park and the Warsaw Technology Park, and then even the older industrial, Boggs Industrial Park, which has access through 30th going straight north. It doesn't go through town. So understand, and just to reiterate, we want to continue to protect WeFab. Obviously, WeFab has done a lot of work for the city in the past, and we continue to hope that they do in the future. We want to protect their rights and their ability to operate at that location. But to sit here and say that we're going to reindustrialize that area is not realistic.
I think that's the message that's out there right now. Okay.
I was to understand, really, that this was going to be an effort to reclaim a brownfield site so industry could use that area instead of locating in a greenfield site. That's something that should be done. Waste ground at Gatke and Arnold, any number of them here in town, but they have environmental problems. So why not clean up the environmental problems and let industry operate there?
Well, I think what he's saying is that industry, even if it is cleaned up, that's not a desirable area. That's not where they want to be. They want to be in these new parks with the new infrastructure and easy accessibility to major highways.
Yeah, I agree, but that, you're talking about orthopedics.
Well, there's more orthopedics out there. Like
No, I know there isn't.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mr. Weaver. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. We went over both pro and con on that. Was there anyone else who would like to speak either in favor of or in opposition? I think we've covered everybody that I can see. So with
We have to
that,
do this
Should we do the
phone thing?
oh, that's what we're going to do,
Okay.
is open it to the public. With that, we've got the phone number. Is that displayed on?
Right
Yeah,
behind you.
that's behind me. I'll read it aloud as well.
Okay.
That number is 574-377-0287. Again, that's 574-377-0287.
Thank you, Johnny. We'll leave the phones open. You can call in whether you're pro or con for the next 2 minutes. We will close it after that, and we will review the motion. So you've got 2 minutes from right now to give that a ring, and we will look forward to your calls should you call in.
Mr. President, you always remind me of Jerry Lewis telethon.
Pick up your phone. Get your
Actually,
check-
Is this thing mine?
Actually,
Get your checkbook out, have
I-
your credit card in hand.
I actually got drafted into doing that in
Did you
South
really?
Bend once, yes.
You're a star, huh?
Yeah, call in, call often, oh, yeah.
You were on the table behind him there or something like that?
I was with a company called Biomed at the time, and
Yeah.
I put on a Biomed hat.
Is that right? And you were actually on TV with that thing?
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah, it was very late at night when I was coming home, and I had a radar detector at the time, which lit up as I was coming into Leesburg.
Maybe on camera.
And I would like to thank the state officer for continuing his trip home that night, as opposed to,
How many years ago was that?
oh, God, I just started at Biomed, it was 86, I think, or 87. It was a long time.
You were a newborn then.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was a good cause.
Yeah.
Very good cause.
So, Mr. Allen, can you hear me?
I can, sir.
So I just wanted to remind the board of the criteria that you guys need to apply in allowing a use variance. So the first, that it would not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Second, the value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Third, that the need for the variance arises for some condition peculiar to the property involved. Fourth, the strict application of the terms of the zoning variance would constitute an unnecessary hardship if applied to the property for which the variance is sought, and that the approval does not interfere substantially with the comprehensive plan. So I think starting at number 5, I think Jeremy, the city planner, says it's in their plan to try to turn the Gatke building into housing. I'm sorry, the Arnold building into housing. So I think that's pretty easy to find. I haven't heard anything that says it would be injurious to public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. I don't know, that'd be up to you to see if you've heard any use and value of adjacent properties. I do think probably there is evidence tonight that the variance rises from some peculiar condition of the property, and that being it sat there for decades with no one wanting to purchase it, or they've not found a buyer for it. And the strict terms of the application of the zoning ordinance would constitute an unnecessary hardship applied to the property. I think it could be likely that with the demand for housing, that particular location, if it wasn't approved by you, it probably, I'm guessing the city planner would ask for it to be zoned differently, so it moved forward anyhow. But that's my take on the legal criteria for tonight.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate your comments. Was there any calls in?
Yeah, we have a call. I'm going to put you on speaker now for the whole meeting.
All right, I don't know we can hear anything yet. Would you do a test for us, please?
What is that?
You're doing fine. Could you speak up a little bit?
I'm speaking up.
Very good, sir. And can you give us your name, please?
No.
Okay. Not sure that falls within the jurisdiction of the board. We'd like to have your name, sir, and are you calling for or against?
Is it for making residential areas out of those zones?
Yes, we have a petition to put a residential area in a currently zoned, and it would be a waiver of, not a change of the zoning, in an industrial location, yes.
Well, I believe that if it is to be turned into residential housing, it should be a homeless shelter or something.
I can't hear him.
He said he thinks
I know I'm so against whatever the protocol is for this call, but I wanted to call it because I care about these zones.
Okay, thank you, sir. We appreciate your call and your comments. Thank you.
Oh wait. Oh shoot. I'm actually on the live stream, huh?
You're actually speaking to the Board of Zoning Appeals and whoever's watching on TV right now, sir.
Okay, I guess I'll just hang up now. You guys know how I feel.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate your comments, sir. We'll close that off. Thank you.
No problem.
Can you summarize that, just so we got it?
The summary is he wants it to be a homeless shelter as opposed to a residential.
Okay.
So it didn't sound like he was opposed to changing the variance. He just wanted it not to be a 3, 2, or 1-bedroom apartment, is my summary of that. Anyone have a different take on that conversation?
I think we had trouble hearing it down here. So
Yeah, I guess I had the benefit of it being close.
Right, yeah, fair enough.
All right, with that, I don't think there's any other calls. We will close it to the public, and now we can chat among ourselves on that. Scott, I do appreciate your summary on that. That helped clarify things. I appreciate that. Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this?
Well, I'll make a couple comments. The concern about the change in the neighborhood, I mean, I can understand that because I kind of live in the same circumstances. I was residential when I first moved where I'm at, right by the courthouse, and now you've got offices and the retired Tigers. But frankly, over the long haul, I consider that a benefit. You know, I just, the people that took older homes and turned them into offices, I think have been a positive for the neighborhood and help it as far as residential. And the retired Tigers has been a positive. I always concerned about traffic, but it's like, I don't know what it's about apartments, but it doesn't seem like anybody ever goes in or out. You know, there's never as much traffic as you think there's going to be. I've never had an issue going by the retired Tigers and have a stream of cars going in or out. So I just think the change was good for my neighborhood. I think the change is definitely good here. As I stated earlier, the Arnold That whole location was going nowhere since I first moved here in
Yeah,
'76.
this has been 3 decades at least,
Yeah,
at least what I've gotten
a
out
long
of it.
time, and so, I'm thrilled that, we're finally getting that area, which has been kind of a blight from day one.
And I do see the city working together with the current industrial state to make, I think it's going to be an improvement. I think it's going to be a benefit to the industries that are already located there. At least that's my opinion of it now. And I think this is a wonderful idea. I'm fully supportive of it, so.
Is there anything we can do to work with him on a fence, or that's to be determined, or?
Well, that kind of falls out of the jurisdiction of the city, I would think.
understand, I'm just idly curious here.
Yeah, certainly, we can't go onto his property and put up a fence. We absolutely can work with Mr. Weaver, and will work with Mr. Weaver to make sure that this use, if approved, commingles with his existence and doesn't hamper his ability. And we'll work with the developer to make sure that we do everything on our end to make it safe and give those opportunities, those connectivity opportunities, that they're not walking across his property.
Yeah, the other issue that does occur currently is that there are semis going down to that asphalt plant, which goes right past that whole area, and Warsaw Engineering as well. So there is some kind of traffic that goes through there. You can't stop that. But my concern would be with the little kids, how are you gonna keep them out of the street? They like to play.
Well, and the mom and me sides with Mr. Weaver.
Yeah.
Because of the children
Yeah.
and, I know the past 6 months in our lives have been extremely unusual, but we've had more children out playing, and should that happen again after all of these are built, that would be a huge concern to me. However, I have to take the mom and me out of this, and I have to respect the decision of our city planners, and I drove down there. I mean, it's ugly. It's ugly.
Yeah,
It's scary ugly, and I walk periodically by the Gatke building during the broad daylight, thank you, and I always look in there and think, oh my gosh, am I gonna see some homeless person sitting in there? I know we've had some copper theft or something, or some kind of theft from the Arnold building, and even a small fire there within the past how many months, but I gotta tell you, yeah, I'm kinda changing my tune for the mom tune and going toward the
industrial tune.
what's gonna benefit our city here?
I think you're 100% correct. I have the same issue with safety and children, and the grandfather in me is coming out.
Yeah.
But it almost sounds like it's worse than it's gonna be. I think this is
Right.
actually gonna be an improvement on it.
improvement.
Yeah, because I think the city will take steps that aren't there now.
Right.
For
Right.
the citizenry of Warsaw in the area.
Well, is this Little Crow open to all ages too?
Yes.
So
Is
you
it-
got kids in that building?
What's the occupancy of Little Crow? It never looks like it's that full.
Oh, it's fully
Is it?
occupied.
Okay.
If you can have little kids in Little Crow, railroad and Highway 50.
I've never,
You can fall out of the window and land on a train.
About now.
yeah,
I think it's important to understand that little kids live in New York City too, right?
right.
So let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. The point that we're making is, and the point that I hear is, there's things we need to do. There's no sidewalks. Well, that's part of our
That's-
need to put the sidewalks, make the connectivity. We built, 7-mile trail that runs from Wino Lake all the way out to the CCAC. And the intent of that trail is to connect people to it. And this is an opportunity for us to connect 60 residential units to that trail.
Thank you, Jeremy. All right, I think that covers that issue fairly well. It's motion time. Is anybody going to step up?
I'm gonna make a motion that we go ahead and approve case number 2020-0801.
So motion, seconded by
Okay, I'll second.
Rick.
My second.
I don't think there's no one on the phone, correct? We're all here. With that, can we have a vote for those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone in opposition? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate your comments and best wishes on the project. Scott, thank you for coming in for clarification on that. That was very good. Any other matters that are going to come before the board? Johnny?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I'd so move.
Was that to close the meeting, by the
You
way?
betcha.
Yeah.
Adjourn.
How about adjournment? Would you
Second.
use that word for me?
Adjournment.
Thank you.
Second.
All, seconded by Dan. All those in favor? Aye. That
Oh, so
carries
now you'll
unanimously.
second.
I won't second the other one.
The meeting is now in adjournment. Thank you.
Kim, do you have a pen down there I can borrow?
Here you go, right here.
Oh, thanks. I didn't bring mine in.
I COVID sterilized.
Everyone else has left the call.